with foods that have been minimally processed. So for example, foods like oats and multigrain bread, as opposed to their refined counterparts such as cereal and white bread that have been stripped of most of their important nutrients and fiber. Not only are these less processed foods beneficial when dieting in the sense that they generally provide more nutrients and keep us fuller for longer, but they also have another unique benefit that has to do with something called the thermic effect of food, which is the amount of calories that our body burns to metabolize and actually use the foods that we ingest. And one of the unique fat loss benefits about unprocessed foods is that in most cases, our body burns significantly more calories when digesting unprocessed foods than it does when compared to their processed counterparts. For instance, one study compared the caloric burn required to digest and metabolize 2 minimally processed sandwiches consisting of whole grain bread and real cheddar cheese versus 2 highly processed sandwiches that instead consisted of white bread and processed cheese. Although both meals consisted of virtually the same amount of total calories and protein, the more processed sandwich had a 50% lower thermic effect, and as a result, the body burned significantly less calories digesting it than it did with the whole grain sandwiches. Similarly, a 6-week randomized controlled trial had subjects stick to a diet consisting of either less processed whole grain foods such as oats, brown rice, and whole grain bread versus a calorie and macronutrient equated diet consisting of more processed refined grains instead, such as cereal, white rice, and white bread. What they found is that the group that stuck with whole grain foods burn on average roughly 100 more calories per day just from digesting and metabolizing their food than the processed food group did. And to put this into perspective, given that the average person burns roughly 100 calories to jog a mile, you'd essentially be doing the equivalent of jogging an extra mile a day just by choosing to incorporate whole grain, less processed foods as opposed to more processed foods for most of your meals. And if you crunch the numbers, over 3 months, this simple change would theoretically enable you to burn 2.5 pounds more fat just by making that switch. So yes, while calories are what matter most, and while you definitely will still burn fat despite eating processed foods, as long as you're still in a calorie deficit, you can further influence the calories outside of the equation and potentially speed up the fat loss process by simply swapping these foods for whole grain, less processed foods instead, and let them do the work for you.